Hits me low, hits me quick.
Folks, we are live. Welcome to Talking Crits. It's a special Talking Crit because we don't have the bad mic. The devil is not with us tonight. It's myself, Eric Tenkar. Jim Kitchen has the weight of this show, or at least me, on his shoulders. Mike is under the weather, still vacationing. We may get him, but if we do, for your pleasure, he will probably be by phone. And I can already hear people cheering that the chance of starting. We want Mike. We
Potato
want Mike.
Cam 101. It's going to
Yeah,
be.
yeah. Only the best for you all. We do try. Welcome to everybody. By the way, Douglas, welcome. Hello from Nebraska. Well, in New York, and wherever Jim is hiding at. Mike is hiding on the
An undisclosed location.
yeah.
Yes.
Mike's hiding on the shores of Texas. If you didn't know, Texas hits the water.
So this is our big annual "What You Ought to Get People for Christmas" show, and so usually it's Mike and I sort of going back and forth. When Mike said he was sick, I try to add some things, and I might be adding some things on the fly, so just bear with us. I think Eric, you have a few, don't you?
I got a few.
Okay, excellent. So we can go back and forth, but let's talk about this first and foremost. Um, all of these recommendations come from Eric and I, and if he hops on, Mike. These are not nobody's paid us, nobody's given us any material. We don't take. I mean, Eric can tell you I've had multiple offers for free products, and I've turned every single one of them down. Number one, I have a shit ton of stuff. Number two, I don't ever want somebody to say, well, the reason you recommended it is because they gave you something. All these recommendations come from, I'll say, the heart, because what
Right.
we want is we want you to find stuff, and we'll talk to all of this. Now, one of the things that you're going to see is a lot of these are Amazon affiliate links, and that money goes back to the tavern. That money goes towards doing good things for people. So if you see a link and you follow the link, understand a lot of this is going to Amazon. It's easier to buy on Amazon. That isn't, I don't want to get into the politics of Amazon and so on and so forth. But we're doing this because it does benefit the tavern. It does make it easy to get things for people, and it's just easier all around. Now there will be links to sites off of Amazon, but
Yep.
we should be good. So let's kick it off. Now, one of the things that was always important to me as a kid was reading. I think most of us are recreational readers, and a lot of things shaped us right from the beginning. So I want to start. I want to kick off my side of the list with the book recommendation that is the root of all things. So Eric, you want to toss it up here? Number one out of the gate, The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian. So what is this? This paperback came out in 2003. This is the Del Rey paperback version of Robert E. Howard's first collection of Conan stories from Wandering Star. Del Rey got the rights to do the paperback of the Wandering Star hardcovers. They're perfect. They're absolutely perfect. And what's so great about this is that the paperback carries over the illustration from the Wandering Star editions. This is the first in, I believe, 11 or 12 or maybe as high as 15 of the Del Rey trade paperback volumes. This is the definitive edition of Conan, hands down, second to none. If you are looking to introduce someone to Conan, or you've always heard about Conan and you're not sure where to start, this is the book. Its retail is $17.85 or $17.95. I can't read that; it's too small. It's on sale. It can be at your house in a couple of days. It's just perfect. Now, I believe that they're
1705.
1705. I
Don't go
believe
for
that
the
they're
hardcover, folks. The hardcover is $88.
yeah, and so that's the Wandering Star version. I think it's the Wandering Star version. Um, what I would say is all of Del Rey's Howard collection. It mimics it was one for one the Wandering Star. You can't go wrong. I think they even have a sale. If you buy two, you get a third free. If you want to go ahead and jump in and get all three of the Conan volumes, you could do a lot worse. And so I can't recommend this series highly enough. The folks at Del Rey were smart enough. They haven't changed the books an iota in 23 years or 22 years. So really and truly, if you grew up in the 70s and 80s and you remember all those Ballantine versions of Conan, this is the new version. Now, this doesn't have L'Esprit de Camp and all the rest of the other authors' works, but this is Howard in his greatest form. They went back to the original manuscripts. They did everything in their power to get this right. And if you've got that niece or nephew who's interested and so on, this is just a high recommend. I'm gonna come out of the gate with a few book recommendations, and this is the one I wanted to start with above all else.
Yep.
So
Shall I move on to the next?
yeah, let's put the link in the chat so people have that.
All right. Links
Yes,
up.
and John Miller points out rightfully there's also a Cull collection, Solomon Kane. Again, I can't say enough great things about the Del Rey editions of Howard's works. Buy them all. I have. I bought them all as they came out. They're just wonderful. But let's. Eric's going to put the link for these in the chat, so you'll be able to click on the chat. You'll be click on the link and play along. My next pick. I really wanted to. There's a lot of Moorcock now. There's a lot of Moorcock to read. The Eternal Champion cycle has got a lot of different flavors to it, but in the end, I think you have to start with Elric of Melniboné. And this is the hardcover that came out a few years ago from 2022. It's a great introduction to Elric. There are 3 volumes that encompass everything you know, as well as Rime Isle and the other things that have come later. If you've not read Elric, this is the version to get. And the covers are fabulous. I'm a really big fan of the art. Elric Elric's an acquired taste, right? He's a little whiny, but he is deeply a part of the Appendix N, a part of the lore of Dungeons and Dragons, and so really can't recommend this enough. Everybody should read the Elric cycle. If you play D&D, everybody should read the Elric cycle. I think it's absolutely the backbone of some of the great 60s and 70s fantasy writing. I have the Robert Gould covered paperbacks that Berkeley put out in the 80s. That was my set. Some people, when White Wolf worked out the rights to do the entire catalog through their publishing arm, they did a wonderful series of editions of all of Michael Moorcock's works. But now, here in 2025, if you're going to ask me what's the one I should buy, I'm going to tell you this is the one you should get. You should get this collection of Elric and Melniboné. I believe there are 3. There. Once you follow the link, you'll see it. Let's go to the next one. So I'm going to talk books for a little bit and just bear with me.
Yeah.
The next book. The Great Book of Amber, the complete Amber Chronicles, all 10 of Roger Zelazny's Amber books in a single trade paperback for $15.99. 9 Princes of Amber, the entire Amber cycle, it's kind of dated. It's kind of it's still, I think, required reading. I read them all in the shade of the maple tree in my front yard over the course of a summer, and I devoured them. I absolutely devoured them. But when we talk about alternate realities, when we talk about God help us, flavors of the multiverse and all this other horse shit, what I would really say is a better way to try to get people's heads around this is to read 9 Princes of Amber. Read the first one. Read about Corwin. It's a great series because you've got these Machiavellian plots between Corwin and his siblings. The notion that the Earth that we know is just a pale shade of the one true right world, which is Amber. How Corwin has to get back and how he navigates his way back. But but for a 12 or 13-year-old that's really looking to sort of open up some ideas and get their headspace into larger things, I gave this exact paperback to my son when he was the right age to really sort of start understanding some of this, and he devoured them all over the course. He read through the whole thing over the course of probably 3 or 4 weeks. It's a it's an odd collection because it is a quick read. It's 10 books in one trade paperback. I would call it chapters more than books, but this is how they came out. Fugli's right. The first five, I think, are the best. And in fact, the first one is really the gobstopper. This is a big paperback. You're going to thunk this down on the table. And when you wrap it up, it makes a good meaty, chunky thunk sound when you put it on a table or put it under the tree. You could go do a lot worse than this big book of Abner. And I'll tell you just a real quick note about Zelazny. Zelazny was the guy that when he wrote, he didn't stop, right? Like he was sitting at his typewriter and it was coming out of him. And I had a chance to buy one of his manuscripts one time. I had a chance to buy one of his last manuscripts. And I didn't buy it, and I've regretted that ever since because um, it's not a manuscript like you would think. It's not he stuck a piece of paper in and typed, pulled it out, put in another piece of paper and typed and so on. Zelazny was batshit like I'm not moving from my desk because I'm writing. And so if he ran out of paper, if he ran out of the typing paper, he grabbed whatever paper was handy. And so like his like water bill, he flipped it over and he typed a page on his back of his water bill. And envelopes, he'd take an envelope and stick it in the typewriter and he'd write a page on the 3-inch wide envelope once he had stuck it in that way. He was a really interesting guy, and I wish I had bought the manuscript, but I couldn't justify it. But he wrote, he typed the way he wrote, which was when he really had an idea, he just let it go, and it was really, really good. So let's go to the next one. None of you are going to be surprised by my next one. This is a collection of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Mars books, the first few Mars books. You get Princess of Mars, Gods of Mars, Warlord of Mars, the original trilogy. Plus, you get Thuvia Made of Mars and The Chessmen of Mars. Um, Arguably, the best Mars books are the first three. The others are a bit derivative. They introduce new people as heroes and so on and so forth. But man, the first three books do so much to just pick you up and drop you in another world, and this sense of the strange and the unknown. I just Anybody who's watched this show knows that I have a great love for the John Carter Mars books. It would be criminal of me not to recommend this. This is a great little collection. I really like this because it's 5 copies. It's 5 books in one. It's an actual paperback. You can get this and again give this to a kid and let him curl up under a tree and let him go. Now, Eric, I want to dig up a couple more.
Yeah,
What's your first recommendation out of the gate while I'm looking up a couple more?
yeah. I'm gonna share this real quick, folks. It's when the Fat Orc Sings by our very own Glenn Hallstrom. Let me put a link in here. This went live on Amazon last week. So hold on a second. I do have a physical copy. I'm going to show this in a second here. Because you probably can't see me holding it up. But I'm going to just show it real quick. Oh, no, that didn't do it.
Ruh-roh.
Right, well.
Ruh-roh. When
Yeah,
the Fat Orc Sings.
yeah, so when a fat orc sings, oh my God, you don't want to cooperate, do you? All right, there we go. So when the fat orc sings, Glenn Hallstrom, it is available on Amazon. I will drop a link in the chat. It is a lively little read. If you like dry humor, if you've ever met Glenn, you know he has dry humor. It bleeds through in this book. So I already know a couple people have purchased it. I'd like to see a few reviews go up. I myself these days, I'm a slow reader. Okay, Glenn sent me an early manuscript of it, and I enjoyed it, but I can only get through like a chapter a week these days ever since chemo. So I don't. I have fun reading it, but then my concentration goes to squirrels or something like that. I have no idea. But that's one on Amazon, and one that isn't on Amazon, but the PDFs for the Gary's Appendix are certainly on drive through. Print, you probably have to go to RPG Rambling. This is a beautiful book. All the individual zines are beautiful also. If Mike was here, I'm sure this would have been a Mike pick. I am sure it's well worth it. Jeff Jones does a great job with this stuff. He's put together a great team. So Gary's Appendix, find it again. PDFs are on Amazon, but you can find it in physical for gifting, I believe. RPG Ramblings. All right.
All right. I got two more books.
Oh,
to sort of go. So the next one is, and
okay.
I'm trying to recommend books that I think are books that you can read them, but you can also give them to kids, and really and truly that's another part of this. I'll get to that in a second. But my next book is actually a collection, and that is the Chronicles of Narnia. I got my first one. I got my first one in 7th grade, and I read it, and I got The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which, if you know the way the book is, the way the series goes, it comes later. It actually, or I'm sorry, not The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Oh, it's Eric. It's Lion.
No. All right. I guess that's how it's working right now.
Anyway, so this is a collection of all of the 7 Narnia books. It's being redone, and I'm sure that at some point in the future we will discuss the new version of the Narnia books that are being done by the woman who directed Barbie. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I thought the first one was okay. The first one was all right. The second one, Prince Caspian, was okay. It's going to be hard because it's hard to get there. I'm not sure what I'm going to think about the movie, but I love the books. So a big recommendation on the books. Big recommendation on the books. You cannot go wrong with the 7 Narnia books. Let's go to the next one. I'm trying to find one more thing. Yes. Let's go to the next one. So I'm going to talk to. I read The Hobbit, and I loved The Hobbit as a kid. I read the first of the Lord of the Rings books, and it left me cold. I just didn't get into it. Fellowship of the Ring was when I tried to read it, I was like, eh. And so I grew up, and I grew into the books. I would say a couple of things. If you're going to give this set to kids, if you're going to give this set to somebody, I think the best thing I would recommend is having whoever it is read The Hobbit to kids. The Hobbit reads well. The Hobbit is a book that you can read a chapter every night to kids and really get them into the idea of storytelling and what that is about. I'm a big fan of reading The Hobbit to people, to kids. And so I think that's my suggestion. Now anybody can read it. That's not my point. But this is a nice 4-volume set. It's got a nice little slipcase. There is always going to be a slipcased version of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. They've just given up. They know they need to sell it. There will always be one. I think this is a great start to that. So now somebody mentioned something, and I've got a late edition that I'm going to give to Eric here. So somebody in the chat mentioned Clark Ashton Smith, and I love me some Clark Ashton Smith. And so thank you for suggesting Clark Ashton Smith. If you are not familiar with Clark Ashton Smith, he was in the circle of writers that was H.P. Lovecraft, August Dearlith, all these folks. But this is a collection of all of his Averone stories, and I'm a big fan of Clark Ashton Smith. So I actually feel bad that somebody had to point out Clark Ashton Smith, but I found this one, and I'm going to make this recommendation too. If you're familiar with X2 Castle Amber, it's set in Averone. It's it's something where Smith's fiction is not your typical fantastic fiction. It's very different. I would not recommend it for kids just because it's a little bit thicker, I would say, than some. But it's another book that I would really, really, really recommend. And so I think I'm going to stop all my book recommendations there. I've spent 20 minutes talking about this and
No,
made a bunch of links, but that's a like all the recommendations I've given you as far as books go. I'm a big fan of all of these for gifts for kids who like to read or are interested in reading. Again, I'd stress The Hobbit is a great read. I don't know about letting Elric of Melniboné loose in the hands of an 8 or 9 year old,
yeah, 13, 14.
but the seminal age of sixth, seventh, eighth grade, yes, every single one of these is a good home run. Eric, do you have another recommendation? I'm going to clear some
I do. Hold on, let me see
okay,
if I
because
can pull it up.
I got some more. Oh boy, oh
Okay,
boy.
hold on a second.
Yeah.
Because this one
Oh
is
my God, there's a tarot deck.
there's a tarot deck. I have this, by the way. So gonna hold up a little bit. See, it's a little tarot deck, and it is the artwork here is awesome. Can I say that again? The
Sure.
artwork is awesome. It's a beautiful deck. And when I was in my younger years, I used to do tarot readings. I would have loved to have had this back in the day.
Wow, that's kind of cool. I'm not sure I'm a fan of the art, but it's pretty good.
It's pretty. It's atmospheric if you want to think of faux wood carvings.
Hmm.
That's the feeling it has. So, and here's the funny thing. I believe I actually have two decks of this. So OSR Christmas should be kicking off in less than a week, and I may put my extra box into the OSR Christmas mix of goodies.
Nice,
So,
nice. Okay, so I have some toy recommendations. So what? Let's start with
ooh,
my first one. Let's start with Timmy. Timmy. Let's start with Timmy. So a good chunk of us grew up with little plastic toy soldiers and tanks and trucks and all the rest. And sometimes you'll go into a store and be like, Target, why are you so lame that you don't carry really cool toy soldiers? So there's a company called Timmy, Timmee. And so I had this link just takes you to the giant bag of green and tan army men.
oh my God!
100 pieces for $22. But Eric, click on the brand beneath the title where it says Timmy, it says brand Timmy Toy. So click
Okay.
on that bad boy. Oh, my friends, an entire world awaits you. Tanks, jets, bombers, toy soldiers, everything in the world. There's helicopters, there's mountain fortresses, there's howitzers. I could spend an hour walking. There's astronauts, there's cowboys and Indians. There is a vast array of plastic death waiting for you to inflict. If you've ever said to yourself, gosh, my niece and nephew, if only I had some really great plastic toy soldiers. Yes, here we go. There's fantasy figures. There's blue versus green with monsters with clubs and swords and so on and so forth.
You are a bad influence, Mister.
But
You are
really and truly,
bad.
like if you just start poking around in that, you're gonna get lost for hours, and just some really 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 great stuff. I recommend it as stocking stuffers, or if you want to hand them out at Halloween and throw them in bags of little kids, whatever. I can't recommend Timmy toy line strongly enough. They're just great. They're absolutely just great. They're cheap, and you're gonna be set. But not to be outdone, Eric, let's go to the
Oh,
next
you're killing me, man. You're killing me.
Three Otters. Are they Chinese company offshore? I don't care. For $28.99, you get everything in that stonking picture. You get a castle, you get siege equipment, you get defenders and attackers. You get a ton of shit for $28.99. And like Timmy, my God, when you click on the Three Otters store, it's just an unending cavalcade of little plastic men and stuff and so on and so forth. So if you've got a kid in your neighborhood, somebody wants a castle, so on and so forth. I really poked around to try to find something good. This is it. If you go back up, Eric, and click on the Three Otters, visit the Three Otters store. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. They've got all sorts of toys, but their plastic army men are really where the sweet spot is.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So I'm sure they're made in a sweatshop somewhere in Asia, but who cares? You get a castle, you get the siege equipment, you get all the rest of it, and for $30 delivered to your door, you can't go wrong.
Hey, you
So
got skeletons and stuff.
yes, there's
Oh,
undead.
oh
It's
my god.
it's just wonderful.
You
It,
you can replay what's it? The Army of Darkness.
yes, you can play Army of Darkness, right? So Kimbasaur Psychtastic has asked what scale they are. I don't know. They're plastic army men scale. They're bigger than 28s. Um, I'm not sure. Probably
Yeah, they
30.
don't. I don't think they say.
Yeah, I think O scale would probably be the closest. But again, like there's just no shortage of this stuff. Between Timmy and Three Otters, I have covered the bases for your plastic army men toy soldier needs.
Right. There's enough detail that they probably are Army Man size at the very least.
Yes,
If
yes,
they were
that's
if they
exactly.
were much smaller, you wouldn't be able to get beards and
Yeah,
uh, well done skeletons who look like pirates. But hey,
yeah, there. I think there's pirates mixed in there. Who cares how they've crossed the genres? There's not a 9 or 10-year-old that's going to get this and be like, "I don't believe this is historically accurate."
yeah, no,
Not going to.
no, I don't know what to change.
I'm sorry. I don't. I'm not sure. I appreciate it. You know what? No, kid's going to open the box and be like, "Ah!" And for $30, you're set. Okay, so let's get into the next thing, which is it's a little controversial, and I'm going to apologize for that. But let's talk about. I
Dun,
I'm
dun.
I know. Hold on, I got to refresh this because
Uh,
I
John Miller, God bless you. 172nd scale for the knights and a larger scale for the pirate skeletons. All
I
right.
know. They're full of stars. Okay, I just put it in, but I didn't put a title in it. So I'm going to make a recommendation. We're going to talk about the Dungeons and Dragons basic box set, and so that's the link I just
Okay.
gave you, Eric. So let's talk about this. This is the new starter set. This is the Heroes of the Borderlands. So I have mixed feelings about this, but I'll explain. I'll explain, and we can all play along. Currently, it's 10% off on Amazon. As we get closer to Christmas, here's some advice. I think, Eric, if you scroll down, I think there's a link. I think there's also I think it goes to also the other version of the starter set, the one that's from last year. But it doesn't matter.
Right.
Let's talk about this. Is this better than the Holmes box set? Well, it's certainly more colorful. Is this better than other versions of the starter set? Well, I don't know. But here's what I'm going to say about this. Um, this is where I sort of get on my soapbox, and I know a lot of you have heard me say this before. But if you want to grow a hobby, you have to create a hobby, and so there's going to be a time. There's going to be a time where Target is going to have the Dungeons and Dragons starter set at 50% off, sometime in the next 10 days. After Christmas, Amazon is going to blow this bad boy out, and Target will too. Um, okay, I am not advocating that you go and spend $44.99 if you are tight with cash. That's not my point. My point is that when these go on sale at Barnes and Noble or they go on sale at Target and they're getting cleared out, you should buy some, and you should put them in Toys for Tots bins. If you can afford them now, you should buy a couple and throw them in Toys for Tots bins, because you have no idea who it is, but there's some kid out there that this box set would land well with. And I don't know who that kid is. None of us know who that kid is. But every kid in the community, every community has kids that need a Dungeons and Dragons starter set. And somehow, some way, that starter set will find its way to that kid's hands. If you buy them and you put them in Toy for Tots boxes, you're going to find, I mean, if you get caught up in the cost, my argument is lost, because really and truly what it's simply about growing the hobby. Is this the perfect version of starter set of D&D? No, but this is the one we have. And this is the one we have right now. Now Target also carries the prior one that's got the white dragon on the cover, but really and truly you could do a lot worse. And I've been in this hobby since May 23rd, 1980. Eric's been in it longer than I have, but I got a Holmes box set for my birthday, and it changed my life. And there's some kid out there that needs a starter set for their Christmas, for their Hanukkah, for their I don't even celebrate a holiday, but we're off from school and whatever. So I really, really, really would say to anybody watching this, if you have the money, if you can afford to buy one or two and put them in a Toy for Tots collection box, or put them in the equivalent in your community, I would really, really, really encourage you to do so, because if you love our hobby, you have to help grow our hobby. And the way we grow our hobby is something like this and an outreach like this. So please take the time. Please take the time to think about this. Again, this is not me advocating that this is the greatest basic set whatsoever. It's just the basic set we have. And again, there will be plenty of opportunities in the next few weeks to get this set at a significant discount. If you have that opportunity and you can take that opportunity, I would implore you to act on that opportunity. So that's my pitch. It does make a nice gift, but really and truly think about it in other ways. So okay. So now we're going to get to the comic book portion of the night, and I cannot believe that Mike isn't here.
I know. He pulled something off his shelves.
I know. It's just madness. But I'm going to come out swinging. A big one. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
I know. Hold on. Here we go. I got to find a.
Hold on a second.
All right.
And I think the one that you're showing. Yeah. Okay, hold on. I will go back to it. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Oh no, it's Hold on.
Ready?
I'm looking at my shelf. Is what I'm doing.
Oh, dude, I can turn around and grab mine. But let's throw this bad boy up here. So let's talk comic books. I thought long and hard about what comic books to recommend, and so I decided that if I'm going to recommend Robert E. Howard's Conan books, the first thing I have to recommend for comic books is The Savage Sword of Conan.
Yep.
Oh my God. Let's put the comics code behind us and go to a black and white magazine, and let's really, really, really live it. And so this is a hardcover collection of Savage Sword of Conan. Now, there's a Marvel collection that is literally a page-for-page reprinting of all the original Savage Sword magazines, but it's spendier. This is 55% off, and it's $68. If you want to knock a kid into puberty early with scantily clad women and swords chopping off heads, this is the book that's going to do it. Savage Sword of Conan, can't say enough great things about the magazine. It's absolutely fantastic. I loved it growing up. I had to fight with my grandmother over it, because if she saw it and she took a peek inside and saw, frankly, the sheer amount of boobage that was in it, she would get angry and throw it away, and I was a bit hooped. But I love all this stuff. I love the stories. There's tons of great art. There's Roy Thorne. There's Barry Windsor Smith. There's John Mishima. It's just great. It's a great collection of Conan. So there you go. Savage Sword of Conan Omnibus. It's just spectacular. Okay, so next, let's bring up the next one. So let's see, and I want to get a third. Sorry, I got to get my other one up. So let's talk to this one. Walter Simonson's Thor run. I think this is the right one. Thor by Walter Simon Omnibus. So this is the second printing. This is the reason it's $73. It's 42% off. So this is where Walter Simonson Thor was in the dumps. It wasn't selling. Marvel didn't give a shit. And they said, "Hey, Walter, you want Thor?" And he said, "Yes." I had an exchange with Alan Hammock today. And if you don't know this, Alan and his wife used to own a chain of comic book stores around Birmingham, Alabama. And he was at a comic book convention and ran into Walter Simonson. And Walter Simonson did a sketch of Thor for him in 60 seconds.
Jesus.
And it's perfect because Thor is young and youthful, but his eyes bear the weight and witness of thousands of years of shenanigans across the 9 realms. I cannot say enough great things about the Walter Simonson Thor run. If you want to give somebody a comic book collection that is like the opening notes of the first Disney Thor movie, where Valhalla is revealed in all of its splendor, where the Rainbow Bridge is executed in this just great colorful detail, all the things that Disney tried to get pretty right when Kenneth Branagh made the first Thor movie. It's so much better in Walter Simonson's book. Like, they literally used the Walter Simonson run to build out the Disney version of Thor. And so this is it. This is the hardcover collection. Buy this for somebody who's going to read the shit out of it. Buy this for somebody who's going to be entertained by all the stories. Last week, Mike and I were talking about the seminal issue in this run where Thor is dispatched to figure out what this alien ship is that's flying through space. It's crash landed. And there's one person awake on the ship. Everybody else is in cryosleep. And Thor approaches the ship, and this person is the guardian of the ship and its crew. And he thinks that Thor is attacking. His name is Beta Ray Bill. And he and Thor throw down, and at one point, Thor throws the hammer. And Mjolnir comes to a stop, and Beta Ray Bill picks up the hammer. And this is not a moment that Thor is prepared for. And as the fight goes on, Odin calls Thor back home and summons him, but the guy who shows up holding the hammer is not who he's expecting. And when he gets called away, Dr. Blake is left standing on the mountain, holding his cane, screaming, "Father, Father, why have you forsaken me?" And the next issue picks right up with Beta Ray Bill looking around and being a little defensive and says, "Who are you, one-eyed fat guy, to tell me what to do?" And he starts to throw down with Odin. It's a great run. It's a great collection of these stories. The art's done so well. That's my other comic recommendation, right? Again, these are things that you plop this into the lap of some 12, 13-year-old kid, and his brain is just going to go pop. It's just great. And if you've never read Walter Simonson's Thor run, it's absolutely fabulous. Now, somebody mentioned Berserk, so let me talk about Berserk. I want to talk about this, right? I'm a guy that read a lot of the manga that came over to the United States in the 1980s. I have every issue of the Viz version of Crying Freeman. I read Masamushiro's Appleseed. I read Dominion. I read Black Magic M66. I got deep roots in manga and so on. And so let's talk about Berserk. You will hear the name come up from time to time. I cannot, in any way, shape, or form, recommend Berserk for anybody under the age of 18. And so when I say that that is a graphic novel that is NC-17, I am understating the adult content in Berserk. There are bad guys in Berserk, and the first time they showcase the bad guys in Berserk, there is no question of how bad these people are. Like the first panel shows you how bad they are. Let's put that aside. Berserk is one of the most successful adult graphic novels of all time. It is a work of art. It is a masterpiece. It is going to be legendary within the publishing genre. But it is not for under 18s. It ain't for anybody under 18. And I say that as somebody who has a son. My kid's 21 now. He wants to read Berserk. Go for it. But Berserk is not something to share with kids. Berserk for adults, sure thing. But go into it like I made this. It's funny because I had this conversation a few weeks ago, and this is why it's sort of fresh on my mind. I was talking to somebody about Berserk, and they said, every time they go to a store, this puppy is heavily shrink wrapped, and there's a reason. But they were talking about it with me, and I said, okay, so here's what I would say. I said I'm a big believer in owning the books, and I'm a big believer in not pirating the books. But this is my one exception where I would say you could do a cursory internet search and find volume 1 of Berserk online, the English translation, and you can find it and you can read it. And what I would say is you should read book 1. You should read book 1, and if it gets you and you are interested in the characters and you're interested in the story, and it's a powerful story, and you're okay with the content in volume 1, go for it. Start buying it. Start looking for it. You absolutely should. But that opening panel page spread that I'm talking about, where we get to see how bad the bad guys are, it doesn't get lighter. It gets heavier.
Ooh.
And Eric, you were a cop.
Yep.
You probably saw some of the worst that humanity has to offer, right? There's a reason there's Law and Order, and then there's Law and Order SVU. Berserk is SVU dialed up to 11. And
you got to be ready for that. You don't want to.
I'm not trying to scare people off from it, right? Because you're an adult, you make adult decisions, and so on and so forth. But don't ask me to make a recommendation to recommend Berserk, because I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it without really sort of couching that expectation. And I'm not trying to come down on who suggested it, because again, Berserk's amazing, right? But I also remember Crying Freeman. I was buying Crying Freeman, and there was a kid that went to my comic book store that wanted to buy Crying Freeman, and she was like, "Nope, you're under 18. I'm not selling you Crying Freeman." And he's like, "Well, I don't understand why." And she's like, because it has adult content and you're under 18, and I'm not having my comic book store livelihood taken away from me for selling, frankly, pornography to an underage minor. Who cares? Not going to listen to this. So Eric, do you have another recommendation? I'm going to send you some links here. So
let me see. Oh, yeah, I do. I have things around my desk. I'll throw the drive-through link up in a little bit. But if you want an OSR rule set that's going to cover pretty much every genre, it's almost like GURPS for the OSR. The Index Card RPG, I believe this is the Master Edition. It clocks in at like 400 pages. Even if you don't use it as is, because I probably won't, it is great source material for your OSR campaign to rip and steal from. And whether you get it in PDF or in print, this is something I leave by my desk because when I need inspiration, I just go to this. So, Index Card RPG, I blame Glenn Hallstrom actually for the one that really told me I should check it out, and he was right. So,
Okay. All right. Sorry. I'm trying to send the links to Eric so he can get everything up on the screen in a timely fashion, folks. So just bear with us as we navigate the shenanigans. Okay, so my next one is the book that everybody ought to read. Everybody ought to read this. If you love role playing games and you're interested in the history of role playing and so on and so forth, let's just talk about the single best book that's the best researched. And I'm sure there's going to be some snarky comments in the chat, and I don't care, but it's John Peterson's Playing at the World, second edition, volume 1.
Yep.
So
I will pull it up.
That's okay. So let's talk about this. There are a lot of books and a lot of histories on what's going on, and we keep seeing more coming out of the woodwork and so on and so forth. This is the second edition of Playing at the World. John split it up into 2 books. It's updated. It's excellent. It tells the story. Now, what a lot of people don't like is that John sort of just presents it. He doesn't cast any judgment on it. He doesn't pick a side. It's
scholarly. I mean,
it is a scholarly work, and I think that's what like the Gygaxians want to see Arneson thrown under the bus, and the Arnesonians want to see Gygax thrown under the bus. And I've yet to ever meet anybody that believes that Lorraine was a great thing for TSR. But if you want to really understand the history of Dungeons and Dragons and the history of TSR and how it all came together, I would say this. Like, I always enjoy it when people make comments about Playing at the World who have obviously not read Playing at the World and have not been able. I mean, frankly, they're too obtuse to read between the lines, because if you read between the lines in Playing at the World, it's all there. It's all there. I like John. I spend a lot of time around John at Gen Con and other conventions. He's one of my Algonquin roundtable at Gen Con every night, where we sit around and drink and talk about stuff. And I think John's a great guy. I know that there are people literally watching me say this who are like, yes, but he was a part of that forward in that book and that. Yeah. Yes, John did write a forward for a book. And interestingly enough, people who no longer work at Wizards of the Coast added material to that forward without telling him. And so I hear a lot of people bash John, but frankly, not a one of them have a tenth of the talent that it took to write Playing at the World. And so if you want to know the history of Dungeons and Dragons, if you want to know the history of how our entire livelihood and hobby and all of this wonderful, how it all came to be, this is the book to read. There's countless other books. I've seen them. I've got most of them, and none of them really hold a candle to Playing at the World. And I give this my wholehearted recommendation. So fight me. Let's go. But let's go to something else. Let's go to the next. I did not recommend any books by Fritz Leiber. And I know that there are people who are going to be like, why didn't you recommend Fritz Leiber? That's fine. But let me talk about DCC's Lankmar. So Dungeon Crawl Classics published a wonderful, wonderful series of Lankmar adventures and a DCC setting and so on. And they've collected a lot of that material in their 3rd Tome of Adventure volume. So let me talk to this. The rights to DCC Lankmar are going away, I believe, at the end of this year.
Yep.
And once it's gone, it's gone. I have owned just about every Lankmar licensed product that has come out. And I have had some that have been amazing. I have said some that are disappointing. I used my TSR Lankmar game to hide my first Playboys and Penthouse from my grandmother. And then when she sort of figured it out, I moved them to my copy of Wizards and Warriors. And she never once opened that. So I would really recommend if you want a great book of the Lankmar adventures, this is the one I would recommend. Look at the price. It's $24.99 for a gigantic hardcover that's 50% off right now. It's 50% off. You could do a lot worse. And to his credit, Joe Goodman sent Michael Curtis to the library where all of library's effects and papers are kept, and he spent weeks making sure that everything they did fit everything that he had ever thought up and put to paper, and so on and so forth. It's probably the Goodman Games version of Lankmar is probably the most authentic, well researched
Mhm.
version of Lankmar to exist. And I can't recommend it highly enough. And that's why, if you're a role player, I wanted to put this on your radar because it's just fabulous. I know that some of you aren't DCC people, and that's okay. You should still get this if you like Lankmar, and so on and so forth.
And I'm going to throw another link in. It's through the Humble Bundle. It's about 17 hours left or so, I think, as we talk. This is the Lankmar Humble Bundle of PDFs from Goodman Games. Uh, Earlier in the month, I believe they actually had physical copies of the Lankmar book. They don't appear to have it now, but you can still get the PDF. So if you're going to run this for DCC or convert on listen, you play OSR, you're good at converting on the fly. I've done it from DCC to Swords and Wizardry. The material is great. I backed the Kickstarter years ago. It's a beautiful collection.
So I've put my next recommendation in,
Yep.
and I realize that it's another Goodman Games product, but let me explain why I recommended this. Now, if I've been trying very hard not to double dip. I've been trying very hard not to feature one publisher more than once, or one product more than once. But I want to talk to this as well. So we lost Janelle, and when we lost Janelle, there's a lot of people who were around at the start of things, and who, as time has gone by, we've lost more and more. All of the Goodman Games original adventures reincarnated have been through Amazon, and in fact, up until like a few months ago, some of the earlier ones were still available. This is still available. This is Original Adventures Reincarnated #7, Dark Tower. A lot of people would say that this is Janelle's masterpiece. And since we lost Janelle's wife a couple of weeks ago, I really just sort of felt like it would be nice to sort of mention this in passing. It's 30% off. It's a gigantic 2-volume hardcover. I've got one behind me, but if you've not read it, this is the great version of this. If you scroll down a little, Eric, you can see that they actually still have Temple of Elemental Evil. Why don't you click on that? They've got it for $40.
Oh my God, if it
Right.
wasn't already on my shelf.
Right, T1 through 4 for $40. So it's worth taking a time to poke around on Amazon and see if you can find some of the other original adventures.
Yeah.
But let's go back to Dark Tower. So Dark Tower is Janelle's. When Goodman got the rights to reprint all of Janelle's material that she had done for Judges Guild, this is one of the first things that came out of that. And big fan. And with Janelle's wife just passing away, I really wanted to mention that. Now, I'm gonna take a left turn to Albuquerque. So I have been engaged this month in a very interesting exercise. Why don't you take that
Oh,
off?
I remember this was first. Wasn't this first comics back in the day?
Yeah, I think so. But let's
Yeah. Okay.
take Dark Tower off, and let me just talk to something for a minute. So if you didn't know it, there was a series of films in the 60s and early 70s, the Zatoichi samurai movies. And Criterion did a collection of 25 Zatoichi
Wow.
movies. I have it I was going to link it, but it's a lot of money. It's a lot more than I normally would. It's like $165 for 25 Blu-rays. Um, I have been involved. I've been doing the Zatoichi Christmas, which is probably the greatest counter programming to Hallmark ever. There's a bunch of us out there in the world who are watching one Zatoichi movie a day from December 1st to December 25th. That's a lot of samurai to ask you guys to look at. But instead, what I'm going to recommend is I'm going to recommend Lone Wolf and Cub, the Criterion Collection of all the Lone Wolf and Cub movies. These are commonly known as the baby cart movies, where the samurai's wife is slain by the bad guys, and he has to go forth with his infant son and try to seek both revenge and keep himself alive. The baby cart movies are absolutely spectacular. There's blood, there's gore, there's a baby cart where the kid literally presses various things on the cart and blades shoot out and arrows, and my God, it's just wonderful. But if you're looking for something to watch that you've never seen before, you could do a lot worse than Lone Wolf and Cub. This was based on the manga that was the I can't remember which came first, the manga or the movies. I think the manga came first. This was a long running series. It's been adapted in the US a couple of times as far as the manga goes. But Lone Wolf and Cub is a linchpin of Japanese cinema. I would really recommend the Zatoichi movies, Zatoichi. That that box set is incredible. But you gotta like samurai movies, and I'm not sure some of you really want 25 samurai movies in a single collection, let alone to watch one every day for the first 25 days of December. However, Lone Wolf and Cub, a little more palatable, a little more limited, $63. I don't feel like I'm going to break anybody's bank, but I would recommend Lone Wolf and Cub. Okay, so that takes me to my next video recommendation. Because we needed to have a couple. And frankly, the movie just gets better the more time that goes by. And that would be Conan the Barbarian. There's a new 4K version that's just come out. It's spectacular. It's on sale. If you don't have a 4K player, I'm sorry, you should get one. The John Milne script is perfect. There's so many life lessons in this. I showed this to my son when he was like 13 or 14. He was bored out of his mind for the first couple of minutes, and then Conan's mom lost her head, and he was a little more emotionally invested. And, it went from there. Big fan of this movie. It's one of the few giant original movie posters that I own. We'll never get Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan the King, but what we do have is we do have this wonderful moment in time in the early 80s where there were swords and muscles, and it's perfect. It's just perfect. And you can at me all you want, but I love this movie. I'm a big fan of this movie. I'm a big fan of how it all came together. Yes, I know it's not 100% spot on with the Howard material. I don't give a shit. It's just that good. It really, really is that good. Now, Eric, do you have one? Because I'm gonna take another left turn to Albuquerque when you're ready.
I don't know if I have one, but I will.
That's okay.
I will just say something. I will say something in general, though.
Okay.
I will say this to the folks: if you are an OSR gamer and you haven't checked out any of the without number books from Crawford, please do so. Okay, you can snag a version of everything for free. The print versions are awesome, but the material, if you just the tables alone, will add so much to any sandbox or hex crawl you're running. But his system itself is actually pretty solid, and he's got all the genres covered. So I will include a link to that in the show notes. But I'm just saying, give it a check.
Okay. Let's pull up my next bizarre recommendation. I'm a big believer that you have to let people explore who they are, and that includes teenagers that, for whatever reason, want to plaster blacklight posters all over their bedroom. And I was one of those kids. I had a giant death. I had the ghost ship going through icebergs. and my God, blacklight posters have elevated to even stranger, wilder, crazier things. I implore you to spend 10 minutes on Amazon looking at blacklight posters, and your eyes will ache, your corneas will just be like in shock. But you'll come up with things like this, which is this amazing mushroom butterfly moon thing, and it's $10. Be a sport, buy one of the big blacklight fluorescent lamps, buy a couple of wacky posters, make sure you get one of Death with his sickle. They're all out there. I could have spent 6 hours going through blacklight posters. I didn't. But I really, really think that there's something just wonderfully hokey and fun about all of this in a way that I just I don't know. I just I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff and that's it. So I think now we're sort of getting to the point where I wanted to talk about um, I wanted to talk about um, some of our other RPG publishers. Why don't you take that off the screen and let me sort of segue into this next part.
Yep.
So we have a lot of people on this show, and I'll be the first to say that there's times where we've had guests on where, I mean, frankly, their games can be pretty niche. I know a lot of these people from going to shows. I know a lot of these people from following them online. So let me step up and say a few things. I've tried to pick I've tried to pick some things that I think fit well with things that we already talk about all the time. I have tried to pick some things that personally resonate for me, but the things that resonate for me don't always resonate with other people, and that's just great. Um, my recommendations are my recommendations. They are not meant as an endorsement of one company over all the others. These are simply the ones that when I was sitting down and I was really trying to think of some things to put up as recommendations and places to spend some money. Um, these are games that I have a lot of respect for their creators and their games, and we're all good. So let's start with the first one. Why don't you pull that link up? So I mentioned this on the show the other day. Anthony Hasso is a Texas RPG creator who came back into Dungeons and Dragons a while back, and he started publishing some things based around his ideas and his campaign. I put it in the chat. You should see.
Yeah, no, I found it.
That's
I
okay.
I got to
It's okay.
I got to reset. I like
That's okay. So let me talk about my. I I have a few people that I really trust. If you'll scroll down a little, one of the people that I really trust. There's two guys that I trust a lot who go to a lot of different shows, and and so we all know Greyhawk Jesus. We all know Alan Grohe, and we know his partner in crime, Taco John of Black Blade Publishing. And so if you scroll down just a little bit more, Eric,
mm-hmm.
I said, show me something great. And so if you look at the very bottom, there's the Night Wolf Inn. So this is Anthony Hasso's very first thing that he published, which is an inn that travels across realities and so on and so forth. I bought it and I immediately was hooked. So why don't you back out? And then there was his Cities of Brass. And that, if you'll scroll down, those are the bottom books: A Fabled City of Brass and the City of Brass Appendices. You don't have to click on all these.
All right.
But again, a striking, amazing book. Really, really well thought out, really, really well executed. Just again, some amazing things. He's now exploring. He's exploring all sorts of aspects of hell and the nine planes. But I wanted Eric to link to this. Anthony lost his wife a couple of weeks ago. They have two kids, and I mentioned this on the show last week, and so this is a very strong personal recommendation. I made this last week, but I'm going to do it again tonight. If you have some money and you're interested in looking at some really great things, I talked about Night Wolf Inn. I've talked about City of Brass. You could do a lot worse than spending $50, $60, $70 with Anthony So, and it would be a great thing for a guy going through unimaginable pain right now. And that's where I'll sort of draw it down there. Okay, so next up, well, let me tell you, I want to talk to, where is it? That's not it. Let's go a different route, because I want to talk about somebody who has not made it onto the show recently, even though he's threatened to.
Threatened to? Well, that says a lot.
There you go.
Oh.
So let's talk about a guy who's been the one-man band forever, and that's Tom Tullis at Fat Dragon Games. And so Tom Tullis is that guy who has gone out of his way more than anybody else to try to support and help people who are interested in printing miniatures at home. Tom's been doing this forever. And Fat Dragon Games is one of those companies you absolutely should support. If you have a 3D printer, Tom's the guy who's made countless videos on how to do a better job of printing the things that you have. Tom's a guy who has a book that he's publishing through RPG now, where once you buy it, every few months, he updates it. He just adds to it, and then you can download the new version of it. But as he gets new tips and tricks for different models of printers and so on and so forth, he just updates it and updates it and updates it. He and I talked about that last year, and he implemented it, and it's been a tremendous success. His Black Friday show right now, or his Black Friday sale right now, is spectacular. I can't say enough good things about Tom and his work. Tom represents himself as a bit of a jerk online, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. Tom's good people. Tom's an amazing guy. Tom is the guy that, if we're going to sing the praises of individual creators and people who are in what I would call the middle tier, or the not large corporate companies making RPG products and similar, I have to throw this out to Tom Tullis. You could do a lot worse than print Tom Tullis miniatures and own some of them in your catalog. And again, the sale he's got that's going on right now is just phenomenal. Okay, let me get you my next.
Tom Tullis. I've known Tom for, I guess, the better part of a decade. I remember Tom when he was doing paper minis and fold up terrain.
We don't talk about the dark times. We don't.
But he really is a supporter, and you can ask him questions. He's very happy to answer them. And thank you to Agile for gifting 5 memberships. Your support is priceless. Thank you.
Okay, so my next recommendation, I had no idea who this man was. I had no idea what he published, and I can't say enough good things about Chubby Funster's player companion for Shadow Dark. The Funster hangs around in the comments. The Funster hangs around on Friday nights when I'm not on the show. I'm on once a week because anymore, and you guys would just have torches and pitchforks. But really and truly, I want to do a call out because I had a chance to get a copy. I had a chance to look at a copy with my hands. And we talk about Shadow Dark and Kelsey a lot on the show. And I know that there are people who are like, how much did Kelsey pay you to talk about her that much? So I'm not talking about Kelsey and Shadow Dark tonight. I'm talking about somebody in what I would call the traditional OSR side of things who recognized something that was important and needed to be addressed. And all of his stuff comes with a layer of professionalism and intention and thought that, frankly, I wish more people had. But I wanted to point out this player companion for Shadow Dark. So if you know people that are like, oh my God, Shadow Dark, that's the best. It's the best ever. Well, make it even better than that and get them a copy of Funster's player companion for Shadow Dark.
And he has a Dark Sun homage for Shadow Dark that is second to none. He nails it. He really does. So. And I'm not
Okay.
just saying that because Greg's a friend of mine. He really does
Yeah,
good.
and again, right? Like this is one of those things where I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything about his products until frankly he was on my radar this past year. And I've gotten to know him as a regular participant in our chat and showing up and so on and so forth. But but um I don't want people to feel like, oh, you recommend him because he's in the chat and so on. So no, I'm trying to give you good products and I'm trying to give you things that when you spend money, it's good money to spend and you're going to feel like, oh shit, I got my dollar's worth.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next one because I'm very excited about this. So Hyperborea. Oh my God, we talk about Hyperborea all the time. And really and truly, if you don't own Hyperborea, here's your chance. It's on sale. You can get Hyperborea, the most recent edition. Um, I can't say enough good things about Jeffrey Talanian, and this gives me a good chance to say Jeffrey Talanian has been remarkably supportive of charity auctions that I've done at Gary Con and other places. He's been remarkably generous in the things that he's donated, um, certainly above and beyond the call. And I have recognized him for that frequently. Um, I'll still do that, and I can tell you that when other people speak ill of Jeffrey Talanian, if other people make fun of Jeffrey Talanian and his just downright decency, that tells me everything I need to know about those people. And I judge them. I try very hard not to judge people, but if you're going to run down a guy who, you know, when Gail Gygax lost her damn mind after Gary died, and 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 absolutely cut Troll Lord off at the knees and said, "You have however many days to get rid of all of the products that you have been working on with my husband." You know, one of the people who was you know, who ran into that calamity and was a casualty was Jeffrey Talanian. And Talanian, to his credit, like he grew from that. You know, it. I don't talk about this a lot, but I got laid off 3 days before Christmas in 1992, and I remember what that felt like, that kick in the teeth, and that sort of shock that I was in. And I can't imagine, you know, here's a guy who's working with Gary to realize Gary's dreams and Gary's products and so on and so forth. And Talanian manages to not only come out of the experience with dignity intact, but he sets himself to creating Hyperborea, which has frankly been one of the settings that I've been the most impressed with and had the most fun with for the last 10 plus years. So if you think I'm going to make a top 10 list and not mention Hyperborea, you're crazy. And I think the world of Jeff, and I think the world of his products. He's got high standards, and I think that's a common theme you're going to see in all the recommendations that I make. So Hyperborea for the win, and absolutely spectacular. Um, if I'm going to talk about Anthony Hasso, I'm going to talk about Jeffrey Talanian. And now, here's another one I'm very excited to talk about because I don't think we talk about this one enough. Here's the link. Go for it. So let's
Oh.
yes. So this is a cut. This is a cut. This is a deep cut. So bring her up on the screen, Eric, and let's talk about this bad boy. Hot Springs Island. You know, I don't hear enough people talk about Hot Springs Island. I don't hear it get enough praise. And really and truly, it's a spectacular, spectacular fun. You know, I was trying to go with some deeper cuts here because what I really wanted to do is I really wanted to bring some things to people's attention. Some of the stuff has got wider release, but like Chubby Funster, I really want to talk about Hot Springs Island. I've had the best time since I discovered Hot Springs Island and began reading it, and I don't know why he doesn't have it on sale. I should have sent him a note and said, "Hey, do a Christmas sale, Sparky," but he didn't. But the quality is amazing. The art is fabulous. The adventure is great.
Yeah.
The island is God, it's like X1 on steroids. I love it to death. I love it to death. It's it's behind me on it's behind me in one of what I would call the good shelves, which is the stuff that I really really have liked and enjoyed, and I recommend when people ask me. Hot Springs Island is the bee's knees, and so if you've got somebody that you would like to you'd like to introduce, if you've got somebody that you'd like to introduce them to something that's really pretty fabulous, I really would recommend The Dark of Hot Springs Island as well as The Swordfish Islands, A Full Guide of the Springs Island. I just I think it's great. I think it's just absolutely wonderful. And I mean, come on, you had me at horrible red ifrit with a slave who is both naked and blue, and I'm not sure why, but sure, she's naked and she's blue. So we've got that going for us. Um, Eric, what recommendations do you have? What other recommendations do you have? I've
Um,
got some more, but I'm
no, no, and you know, I have a pile of, and I don't want to use the word crap. I have a pile. I have a pile of books around my desk, and since we're going deep, I'm going to go deep here. Especially since look at that! I realize I've got two. I might have to give one of these away. All right, so here, let me remove this from the screen for a second.
sure.
Okay.
And again, we're putting all the links in the chat.
Yep.
Eric's going to do a massive sheet with all the links. So folks, we're really trying to give you a resource that like you don't have to be scribbling all this and have 97 tabs on.
No, no, it's already, the show notes are partially updated already, but they're going to be more updated. Okay, I'll tell you that much. All right, so the Sickest Witch. It's by Severed Press. I have two copies, but I have one of my copies is the signed by the author. You're not getting that one. But since I do have two copies, I am going to give one of these away for OSR Christmas. It is a very OSR, slightly disturbing book, but it's well done. And if you like the quality of binding that you find with a James Raggy book, you're going to find similar high quality from Severed Press. They also sell, what do you call it? The Gelatinous Cube Glow in the Dark Dice.
Ooh,
G6. Oh, I got those at Page last year. So they are really good. So just so you folks, just so you know, these books were sitting right there with this book. So that tells you the high esteem I put this stuff in. So like I said, we got some OSR Christmas will include some of my better duplicates. And why do I have duplicates? A lot of times I find that publishers, when I make a purchase, they know I do OSR Christmas. Sometimes I get an extra copy thrown in. So that gets, I don't sell them, folks. You'll never see me doing anything on eBay. Stuff gets given away or donated to conventions. So what's our next pick there?
okay. So I've got a few, but I got another Amazon link for you. Um, I mentioned that at Gen Con I have a sort of Algonquin roundtable of people. I sit and we drink our favorite drinks and we talk about things and so on and so forth. So everybody talks about The King in Yellow, Robert Chambers' book that was essentially rediscovered in the early 90s and now has swept through the mythos and so on and so forth. So one of my friends is Ken Hite, and Ken Hite has done an annotated version of The King in Yellow. And it's spectacular. If you have wanted to read The King in Yellow, if you'd like to have somebody sort of explain and give you the cliff notes of some of the stuff that's mythos relevant or adjacent and so on and so forth, if you're tired of hearing about The King in Yellow and you don't know what The King in Yellow is about, this is the version of the book to buy. So, one second. Hold on a second. Here we go. So I have a copy. If Eric's going to do live show and tell,
There you go.
all the stuff that I'm recommending, I have. And so here's my copy of The King in Yellow, from Arc Dream Publishing, the folks that make Delta Green and so on and so forth. Here you go. There's King in Yellow, annotated by Ken. This is a fabulous, fabulous version of this book, and I can't recommend it highly enough. It's just a home run. It really, really is. So please, please, please take the time to take a look and see this. Now, the next one is The Ball Breaker. And so this is the one where I really, really debated putting this in the list. And then I thought, screw it. Everybody has to have a big item on their Christmas list.
Okay.
And so you may remember that some of us talked about
I was talking about this one earlier today, actually.
the true relation of the great Virginia Disastrum of 1633 from Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Sweet Christmas. Sweet Christmas. This is the thing that showed up at North Texas this year, and he brought, I think, 40, and they sold out like that. And I think it was $350. There are 8 left to buy. These are the last 8 copies. I believe, if the website is correct, there's 8 copies left.
That's what it shows. Yeah.
And if you want to own something that, frankly, you just can't believe how spectacular it is, this is that thing. This is the most expensive thing I'm going to recommend. This is the most expensive thing that I can give this a 1,000% recommendation. If you spend the money on this, you're not going to be disappointed. If you want to see what the middle tier of RPG publishers that aren't WotC, that aren't Goodman, that aren't Paizo, if you want to see what they can produce, if you want to see the very best of the best, this is it. Hands down, it's probably the new high bar standard in the middle tier for a really, really, really good reason. It's a home flippin' run. And so I know it's expensive. But if you want something that you're going to curl up and spend, it's sort of like the Massive Nyarlathotep, right? The most recent version of the Massive Nyarlathotep is, I think, the 2-book slipcase that's spectacular, and it's been expanded, and they've made a bunch of changes. But you're going to get that and open it, and you're going to read it over the course of a few weeks, and so on and so forth. This is the same. This is the same kind of product, but it's even nicer. And I like all the folks at Chaosium, but I'm just going to say that. Okay, so let me go to my next recommendation. So there's a lot of miniatures that we can talk about. I talked about Fat Dragon and Make 'em at Home, but now I want to talk about one of the more traditional folks making miniatures, and that's Reaper. But why do I want to talk about Reaper? This link will take you to Reaper's homepage for new releases. They have a Christmas promotion with a bunch of Christmas miniatures and so on and so forth. But I want to really talk, if people aren't aware, Reaper wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for Heritage Miniatures. Reaper wouldn't exist if there hadn't been an active tier of people collecting, creating, making miniatures in the late 70s and 80s. We all talk about Ralpartha, and there is sort of a hollow shell wearing its skin that makes miniatures now of Ralpartha. They've got all the old stuff in print, so you can go get all that stuff. But Reaper is something a little different, right? I have met the folks from Reaper, and without a doubt, they've been some of the nicest people that I've ever talked to. They're not a Games Workshop, and all of you who watch this know that I used to work for Games Workshop. I love Games Workshop, but Games Workshop is doing something very, very different from what Reaper does. And Reaper has transformed itself in the last 10, 15 years in a way that I don't think they could have ever anticipated with Bones. They have invested in technology, they've invested in sculpting, and they're making some astounding miniatures. They're Their miniature finder is one of the cleverest things I've ever seen. So God help you if you want the elf with an eye patch and a crossbow, it'll find the miniature for you. But Reaper hosts ReaperCon. Reaper has been incredibly generous about taking care of painting contests around the country. I think a lot of everybody at Reaper and the people who paint for Reaper. I have a friend whose wife has done some amazing painting. Angela Emery. She shows up at North Texas every year now and does little painting clinics and so on. Reaper is helping build a community of miniature painters, and we have to recognize that, and we have to praise them for that, and make sure that they get the credit they deserve. So if you are of a mind to get some miniatures and not print them, if you're in mind to not print miniatures and just buy some miniatures, I would really steer you towards Reaper. They've done all sorts of special miniatures for people in dire straits. They're good people. They're very, very good people. So I only have two more recommendations.
Okay.
And then I have an idea, and we'll go to this. But let me make a different kind of recommendation. And so I'm going to give two links here, and I want to talk to both at the same time. And Eric can bring them up here in a second. My first game store is amazing. Why don't you take Reaper off the screen here for a second?
Yep.
So I want to start actually with the link I'm about to send you. So 1 second. Let me send you this link. Oh God, it's not the greatest link. So the one I'm about to send you right now.
Link number 3.
Yes. So let's talk about that. So before you bring that link up, my first role-playing game store is still in business. And so the Rusty Scabbard in Lexington, Kentucky was my first game store that I ever went to. And they are still in business. Sweet Christmas, 45 years later. I actually have a flyer from back then. And so why don't you bring the link up and we'll sort of show folks what we're talking about. Rusty Scabbard's moved a few times. Their homepage is a Facebook page. But what I'm getting to is I want to talk about your friendly local game store. We always abbreviate that as FLGS. Whoever your friendly local game store is, you need to support these folks because they're the folks who have local gaming. They're the folks who have to make the hard decisions about what games to bring in, what games not to bring in, how to support the community, and so on and so forth. And folks, I'll be the first. You can take Rusty down for now. Mm-hmm. I'll be the first to say a little known fact is that I've been to over 1,500 game stores in North America and Europe and England, if you want to include England and Europe or whatever. However you want to slice the cookie. I've been to game stores in Hong Kong. I've been all 50 states. I've seen the best, and I've got two that I'm going to talk about as the best, and I've been to the worst. And I'm talking about Imphoner's Games Only Emporium in Pennsylvania, and the highs and lows of North Coast role-playing games in Eureka, California. And Barry, if you ever watch this, man, you were a tool to talk to on the phone sometimes. And Christ almighty, I know the store is still going and eking along, but man, oh man, that guy and Common Sense were often frequently divorced. But there's the local stores that are near you are the local stores you got to try to support if you can. And they're the folks that are in the trenches every single day. But, a lot of local stores have only been open for a few years and so on and so forth. And sometimes our tastes are a little more esoteric and we're looking for older things and so on and so forth. And so I wanted to make two recommendations. If you're looking for something older, we all know about Noble Knight. There's always eBay and so on and so forth. But I want to make two recommendations. I want to make the first one, which is Games Plus in the Chicagoland area. Um, oh, that's sad to read about the Warhouse in Long Beach. That's really tough. So Games Plus. Let's pull the website up. Games Plus has been around forever. They have an incredibly knowledgeable staff. They have stock and inventory that goes back over 40 plus years. They are a stalwart in the industry. They're some of the nicest people imaginable. And if you're looking for something old, if you're looking for something that your local store just is not going to have and can't get for you and whatnot, a strong recommendation for Games Plus. And let's go to the next one. North of the border, the Sentry Box. Now, folks, I'll confess, as part of a disclosure, I spent some time working at the Sentry Box when I lived in Calgary. It's hard to describe the Sentry Box, but it's 28,000 square feet. It's got gaming, open tables. It has a terrain room, just the room for storing terrain, that is larger than some stores. They have a bookstore on the lower level. They have board games. They have miniatures. They have inventory that goes back 50 plus years. They are an institution in both Calgary, Alberta, and in the country of Canada. But I did not want to recommend Games Plus by itself, and I didn't want to recommend Sentry Box by itself. But between those two stores, whatever your taste for older things or what you're trying to find or whatnot, you should reach out to either of these stores. They're both apex predator game stores. They're both, it's hard to say this, but you could do a lot worse than to make a trip to Banff and stop at the Sentry Box. Or you could do a lot worse than to drive through Chicago and stop by Games Plus, because you're going to come out hundreds of dollars out of your pocket and 200 pounds worth of gaming material that you didn't imagine you could ever find. Both stores are just great stuff. So that's all the recommendations I had. I think that's a pretty swarthy long list of things and so forth. Eric's been kind enough to sort of collate this on the fly, and we'll have links to all of this. And so I guess what I'd like to do now, we have roughly about a half an hour left in the show. And so I'd be interested, all of you who are in the chat, if there's one item that you would like to recommend that people look at or take a peek at or recommend, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to talk about. You can write a couple sentences, but before you hit enter, make sure you include a link to the product you want to talk about.
They can't do a link, but listen, just tell me where, if it's on Amazon, I can find it.
There you go. So name the product, and if it's on Amazon, Eric will find a link, or otherwise we'll try to track it down and put it in.
YouTube doesn't like links in live streams because apparently like porn sites and stuff get.
Sure, I can understand that. So if you have things that you feel like, God bless America Kitchen, you dolt, you missed it, and you should have recommended, Super Pony Express Adventures, then please by all means correct me and put these notes in our comments. Again, I've really tried very hard with a lot of the recommendations to not put high expensive things. There's only one really expensive thing. So let's see what we've got. Give to the group GM would be Fantasy Grounds, which is free in the core rules of your game of choice. Winter sale starts December 18th and runs through January 5th. There's a spectacular thing from the wonderfully named Bang's Naughty Bits. I particularly enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's the reason why we can't have any links, okay? That's the reason.
Okay, so let's go on. So let's go to Agile Monk's comment, Gods of the Forbidden North for OSE.
Oh, yeah, it's on drive-through. I have the first 2 volumes, got them at Rogers Central New York Con, won them in the auction. They are amazing, and they're huge. So, no, I haven't gotten through reading them yet.
Okay, so Gods of the Forbidden, that's fabulous. Another vote from Agile Monk about anything Chubby Funster does. We have a link to Chubby Funster's RPG Now page that'll be in the show notes. And so there's another ringing endorsement for the Funster. 120 sheets of large graph paper pad, 11 by 17, 14.59 for a 4-pack. Interestingly, I almost recommended the graph paper that I've gotten from Amazon Basics, but I didn't want people to be like, "You recommend a lot of stuff on Amazon," because I have it's literally over to my right next to my convention bag, but I have I have churned through my Amazon Basics graphic or uh, grid paper time and time again. I high recommend. Another vote for Fantasy Grounds from Great Old Ones channel, my VTT of choice, highly recommended. Hero Kids is the best intro for kids and parents for the first RPG written for kids as young as 5 and up, and lots of modules. I'm not familiar with it. I'll take Christopher's word
I've
for it.
heard of it. I don't own it,
Okay.
but I've heard of it. I've only heard good things. So
And folks, I try really hard. Like I could spend a week of our shows talking about books and so on and so forth. Quadrangle paper, somebody else has mentioned Quadrangle. If you know somebody that really wants to create a big dungeon, one of the things that I have found is at stationery stores and Amazon and so on is I can find really, really big sheets of graph paper when I've been working on something that I'm trying to get finished up in a publishable form in the next year or so, and I've been using one of those giant sheets to really sort of pencil out the much larger worldview, the sort of 20,000 foot level of the adventure, and I have found that to be really, really useful. Um, I know that I hit on gifting to kids a lot, but frankly, as adults, Jesus, all of us, if we see something during the course of the year, we'll just buy it. Christmas is a time for kids, and Christmas is really a time for gifting and trying to expose people to our hobby and getting people started in the hobby and so on and so forth. And that's a lot of the angle that I sort of looked at. Dragonbane Core Set. The box set is a great game that is accessible as a first RPG game, in my opinion. Okay, I'm not familiar with it, but again, this is a community. Like ideally, this show is much more of a community than it is just than just a couple of talking heads telling you stuff.
right,
And so I trust the tavern chat within reason. I trust the tavern chat to have a pretty good idea of some things that frankly we can't see everything. We can't see everything. And I have a local game store. Um, it's a nice game store. It's pretty good, but it's also a heavily Magic game store. It's a lot of board games. The RPG slice of it is much more mainstream, and it's not as wide as some stores that I would like, or as far as the selection goes that I would like to see. Um, I don't know, Eric. Is there anything that you didn't put on the list that you've thought of during the show? I got a couple of things like that I thought of, but
um, well, if you're on drive through, I'm gonna pretty much say anything from Raging Swan Press. I like the what's it, the Dread Thingnomicon. I actually mentioned it in a recent video. It
yeah,
is if you like tables that actually have some meat on them that will inspire you. I'm an improv GM, so and Raging Swan's been doing this for well over a decade. Their tables are good. Their resources are good. Their system neutral is essentially OSR. So I really think you really can't go wrong with their stuff. I had one person go, "It's probably all AI generated." Dude, the book was done in 2022, and they've been doing this for over a decade.
I'm sorry, but like as soon as you say tables, I start to twitch just thinking of Rollmaster.
No, 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 no. It's kind of like it's tables as in, hey, what do I find in this empty room? Or what are we going to deal with when we get to this farm? It's inspirational tables. It is in Table Master. Okay.
okay. So a couple more recommendations. Age of Rebellion, the beginner game, is running an offer on Amazon. The One Ring Starter Set, not the fifth edition, duly noted. Raging Swan Press also does the Dread Dungeonomicon.
I don't have that in print, but I do have the Thingnomicon in print. But yes,
Yes, that's another one of those really great names. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think of other things. I don't know. I think the thing is that obviously you guys are listening to us and we're talking about our pet passions. And I think that all of you have pet passions about what you've read and so on and so forth. I I certainly I highly enjoyed the Expanse RPG based on the age system, has a quick start, a little bit of a twist on sci-fi. The Expanse books are just they're popcorn science fiction. I devoured all of them. Um, let's see.
Yep,
I,
they
I
use shout-outs, by the way.
it's interesting, right? Like I don't want the person who felt recommending Berserk that I'm against recommending Berserk. I just think you have to recommend Berserk carefully,
Yeah.
very carefully. But that said, like there's also books like that. My God, if you had told me 3 or 4 years ago that we would walk into a Barnes and Noble and there would be gigantic erotica sections of fantasy smut, I would never have believed the length and breadth and width of this entire category that has revitalized vaguely pornographic or flat out pornographic romance fiction. And Harlequin certainly never saw this coming, but
No,
it's
there's
now a raging part of the market and is being fed with lots of things and tentacles and things.
Kings
So
books.
but everybody's tastes are different, right? And again, what I said earlier in the show is we're trying to give you 20,000 foot recommendations that we have to fill 2 hours. We could fill 100 hours, and it's
Yeah.
one of those things. Music, that's a great point, but everybody's very subjective, right? Like,
Bards of Greyhawk, though, is certain. It's certainly it's a good selection of music. Um, but again, music is very selective, like Jim was saying. It's very personal, and you may, your musical taste may overlap with somebody else in some ways, but not in others.
oh, dude, yes, like yes. A recommendation from Christopher Lundgren. I think Bloat Games, Dark Places, and Demogorgons RPG is a great 1980s Stranger Things meets Stephen King RPG, the Ultimate Edition. So there's one for you. I music wise, it's always hard for me. I'm still ashamed to admit that I asked for. I'm still ashamed to admit that I asked for the Styx Live cassette from my aunt in California for a
I don't.
present.
I see that. That's okay, man.
I know, but it was chock full of Kilroy was here stuff, and as Tommy Shaw said, "Why am I standing on the stage singing about robots?" And it's
Well, yeah, it depends on. Yeah, I actually did see the YouTube video all about Six and that whole. Ooh,
yes, they were losing money on the Kilroy tour, losing money left and right.
yes. I was like, ooh,
What
jeez.
is this purple crown and number one that pops up with my posts? I don't know, Douglas. I am unaware. I'm on this side of the curtain with the amazing Oz over my head.
And Douglas, it means that you're one of the top commenters, apparently. So
Oh my God, you're the
well,
best.
you're number one with number
You
two.
and a number one.
Yeah, yes,
You and a
David.
number.
It's top commenters.
Let's see other things to recommend. There's so much of the Appendix N. Somebody mentioned there's a great guide to the Appendix N that I didn't mention or I didn't link. The Space 1999 TTRPG just dropped from Modiphius. Oh, so true story. I can't make this up. This is too weird.
Uh
So, my stepmom and I were sitting around one night watching some English TV from the BritBox, and she mentioned that she always liked this actor. Like she always liked him in all this stuff she did. And after she went to bed, I found his little website and I sent him a note. And I said, "Hey, just a quick note of appreciation, right? Because he's pretty much retired from acting." And I said, "Hey, just a quick note. My stepmother remembers you in this back in the early '70s. Watched you in this, blah 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 blah." And we were sitting around tonight and we watched like 4 episodes of this and so on. And I kid you not, I sent that before I went to bed. And when I got up the next day, there was an email back from him. And the best part is he's like, "Oh, I had so much fun on that show and blah blah blah," because that's where I met Catherine Schell, the woman who played Maya in the second season of Space 1999. And he says, "And our families became great friends. Like we went on vacation together. We went here together, blah, 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 blah. Like these two families hit it off and they would travel together and they got, sometimes they'd get on the same television or movie project or whatnot." And I said, "Oh, I said, like I loved me some Catherine. I said I loved Catherine Shell back in the day. Like, please just say in the nicest way possible that you had an exchange with someone and they have fond memories and they wish her all the best." And he said, "I will." And I forgot this completely. And then a couple of weeks later, I get another email from him, and he says, "I was sitting around with Catherine and her husband. My wife and I were sitting around with Catherine and her husband, and I told the story of your initial email and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And she thought that was very nice." And I was like, "Oh my God, Maya thinks I'm nice. This is great." So, 12-year-old me is squealing with joy.
See, now 12-year-old me had the shuttle. I had that. It was
Oh,
huge.
the Eagle. I had the
The Eagle.
Eagle. Yeah,
And
I had
we had it. So I'm not saying I was a destructive kid, but
sure.
I believe that things had to be realistic. So my GI Joes, when
Yeah.
the hair fell out in the bath, they had radiation sickness. So the shuttle was always crashing in the show. It always had some kind of a problem.
Yeah, they went through a lot of Eagles.
Yeah.
But they did explain in the show that they made them in the base. That actually there's a hangar. They reference at one point, like they actually can make an eagle every couple of weeks. Like they literally can make
Well,
one.
they needed to.
Yeah.
So we had snow, and I figured, oh, snow, it's cushiony, and I threw it off the back porch, and apparently it broke in the middle of the eagle, and
Yeah.
crazy glue does not repair that, and you don't tell your parents that the eagle is broken.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of tough too. I
Yes,
totally.
yes,
Yeah.
David. Eagle one exploded every episode.
So really and truly, folks, like Space 1999 is the great 1970s British answer to Star Trek, right? And somebody else mentioned UFO and all those great Jerry Anderson shows. But if you watch Space 1999, like you can now get the Blu-ray of both seasons, and it's pretty reasonably priced. But the episode to watch, like there's a couple of key episodes in season one. There is it's not the Watcher in the Dark. I'm trying to think of the name of the episode, but there's a one of the people on Moonbase Alpha had been a part of the Ultra Probe, and I'm gonna have to look this up.
Uh-oh.
Um, he had been a part of the Ultra Probe mission, and um, they all died. They all died because they came across a Sargasso of ships. And when they docked with the one with a life sign, the thing on the ship ate the rest of the crew. Now, the monster is like bubble wrap, and you will hurt yourself watching the monster, right? It's like a lot of lights and so on and so forth. But Dragon's Domain, that's the name of the episode, Dragon's Domain. But the thing shoots tentacles out, and the thing grabs a hold of the crew one by one. And the first person it grabs, it pulls into its terrible open maw of lights and bubble wrap. And the next thing you know, it spits a smoldering skeleton across the floor. And the rest of the crew go, because they realize, and then one by one, it's just picking them off, throwing them in its mouth, and husking them out. And our hero manages to get to the cockpit, hits the detach, and breaks away from the rest of it and makes it back to Earth, but nobody believes him. Of course, the moon, Alpha, comes across the Sargasso, and the remains of the Ultra Probe back part of the ship is there, and they dock, and it's still alive, and it's still unkillable, blah, blah, blah. But the other episode, the other great episode, and this ties right in with Eagle One, is War Games. And War Games is a gut punch after a gut punch after a gut punch. And so, an alien ship comes to Alpha, and Koenig, the Commander Koenig, has a choice. Do we let it land, not knowing what's happening, or do we go on defense, go on an active defense, and so on and so forth? And War Games shows you an absolutely brutal outmatched Alpha getting the shit blown out of it. And one of the moments is that Alan Carter is in Eagle One and gets the shit blown out of Eagle One, but he's not dead. All the systems are offline, and he's trying to repair it and try to patch it up, and so on and so forth. And then, like he because they think he's dead, he ambushes a flight of the alien ships, but then of course they smoke him. And the whole episode, War Games, is just, it's a great testimony to model making, because all the models they had to make for the show, that episode, it looks astounding. It's just great. Somebody mentioned Darrow Deep. I almost mentioned Greg's products tonight, and I didn't, because I think we've talked about Greg a lot. I know we've talked about Hyperborea and Shadow Dark and so on the show. I almost talked about Greg tonight, and I didn't, because I was still trying to find some of the deals that were on Amazon to try to get some lower prices. But absolutely, Darrow Deep's fabulous. I think it's great stuff. I don't know what else, Eric. I mean, Eric, is there anything RPG that you're asking for Christmas, or is there anything that you've sort of got in mind to buy for Christmas?
You know, what do you see? The thing is, I've got a pile of stuff I haven't read yet. That the Kickstarter started coming in. And I'm looking at them, and I'm like, at some point, I got to justify this pile of stuff that's sitting in the corner of this room, and before Rach realizes I haven't read them.
So I'll talk to this real quick. I can't remember if I mentioned this or not, but I'm a big John Carter Warlord of Mars guy. And so Heritage Miniatures made a miniatures game and made a whole line of miniatures for John Carter back in the late 70s, early 80s. And so about 10, 15 years ago, I decided that, when I was a kid, I had one blister. I had one of the Great White Apes. And I painted it, and it's terrible, and I'll put it on the show one night. But I decided about 10, 15 years ago to start buying myself one blister of John Carter Warlord of Mars miniatures, old Heritage blister, for Christmas. One blister a year. And I've been buying my one blister a year now. And there is a guy who has all the molds who makes the miniatures, but it's more fun to actually get the old blister. And so I paid for, and should be getting soon, my 2025 Christmas John Carter of Mars blister. It's one of the few that I don't have. But in the same time, when I ordered that, and the guy was like, "Hey, I've also got these," and I was like, "Yes, but I actually already own those, and I'm sorry." But at the same time that I ordered that, I also got from the early 70s a box of 5 of the Hinchliffe Martians, and they're awful. Like, these are terrible miniatures. I mean, I had never seen them new in the box.
Giving you full screen to show the horribleness.
They're small. They're like, I mean, they're sort of kind of 25s, but they're kind of weird, and they're not very ferocious. But I had never seen them new in the box like this. So I bought my box of 5 Hinchcliffe, here. I bought my little box of 5 Hinchcliffe Red Martians, just because I'd never seen them before, and I'd always heard about them. And I have a friend in our old school miniatures group, David Wood, who, he's like, "Oh, Hinchcliffe made them, and they're quite okay." Thanks, David. They're okay, and so on and so forth. But they're kind of blobs of lead, and that's all right. But I was never going to set out to buy them. But then I saw that there was a box of 5 brand new, and I thought, well, for, I think it was roughly $20 to my door. Oh, screw it. How could I not give them a home if I'm also going to buy some of the John Carter, some of the old Heritage stuff?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't need a lot of RPG stuff, because I got a lot of RPG stuff.
Yep.
But, I'm also somebody who, I was late to Shadow Dark. I wasn't excited about it, and hadn't heard about it, and wasn't paying attention to it until I saw it at North Texas. And so there's probably going to be something in 2026 that I'll come across, and so on. but right now for Christmas, there's just not a lot. I got a bunch of stuff to read, and I'm excited to read them.
Yeah, that's my situation. I'm afraid to add to the pile.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point.
You know,
I don't think we need to do the. I don't think we need to do our. I'm not going to recommend a movie this week. I've got stuff, but I think we've made
you've
enough
already
recommendations.
recommended movies with what we've already shown people and recommended. We've covered Mike's books or comics. We've covered music. No, we haven't. But we're not going to. Only Mike gets to play with the music.
That's right. That's right. I could, but
Yeah,
um, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I think that one of the great joys of the holidays is giving gifts and trying to find good gifts to give. I think that we're a show that sort of lives for this sort of stuff. That's a great point. Crawl for the Cure is this weekend, and we'd be remiss to not mention that. I don't do dice. I mean, frankly, I got enough dice. I'm good. I got a lot of dice, and at this point, I'm not buying dice actively. Dice just find their way, and I regift them and get them to new homes because I have a drawer plus full of dice,
yeah.
and I'm good. I'm just good. Um, I don't know. So next week is
The 17th, we have Ignatius Umlau.
Ignatius Umlaut is going to be here, and it's going to be
And
very
and we're going to be talking about Fight On number 17.
right on number 17.
So, um, little hint. I think I already have a script that I got to record. It's ready to drop either Tuesday or Wednesday of next week because it's huge. It's a lot to go through. It is awesome, and I realize I have 14 issues of Fight On that I got at WizardCon last year at the auction that I gotta probably read between now and then, at least get up to date so I can have intelligent questions.
Far better you than me, my friend. Far better you than
Oh,
me.
it's good. Fight On and Knoxspell were my. I looked forward to them when they came out. Grabbed them on Lulu or wherever they were, and I'm just like, oh, so good times, good times.
Yes, yes.
So that's next week, the 24th. I'm warning Jim right now. I'm warning you all. We were trying to move things around, so I would have been home on the 24th. I am not going to be home on the 24th. So we're probably going to do the 23rd if it works for people, or the 26th. I don't know, but yeah, because we can't do Christmas. I'd be lynched, but I'm going to get lynched if I did 24th. So we'll probably move it up a day. Just saying.
Yeah, we could do that. I'd be all right with that.
All
We'll see if
right.
our Wednesday night crew haunts us on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I might confuse some people. You know.
I thank all of you for your patience. I thank all of you for your time and consideration. I know I mentioned Anthony Hasso. If there's one person to spend a little money with, I would ask that you consider him. The Nightwolf Tavern's fabulous, and all of his products are fabulous. But his kids are having their first Christmas without their mom.
Which sucks.
And yes, so we can't change that, but we can throw a little spending money at what is probably going to be the hardest Christmas those kids ever have. So I got nothing else.
Folks, that's why we are a community, right? So we look out for each other.
Yes.
Next week, again, we're going to have Ignatius Umlau, Fight On 17. Should be a very good episode. Live streams the next couple of nights. I'm going to be appearing on Rumble on Saturday at 5. I'll have more details as we get closer. But I'll be popping on Ryan David's weekly show, so it should be a lot of fun. Other than that, thanks to Mike for not showing up with his potato phone.
Yeah, no potato can. We didn't have the potato can tonight. That's crazy. So
Agile, the link is already in the show notes, so you can catch the. I put everything in the show notes as I could. Should be updated. I will double check after the show, but it should be in the show notes.
Nightwolf and City of Brass, all of it. I mean,
really,
yeah,
give it a look. And again, Agile, thank you for gifting and memberships. Thank you to all. We've been having a strong week with. We don't do a membership drive, but you all have been doing one, so thank you. And I'll catch you all tomorrow.